Process versus product. It's the age-old debate, and we have people who are very opinionated on either side of the fence. But thankfully, I believe, as our guest does today as well, that the process and product can have both wonderful places in the classroom because they meet different needs, and neither one needs to be banished from our classrooms. Welcome back to the Preschool All-Stars podcast. I'm your host, Joy Anderson, and with me today is my good friend, Maggy Woodley. She is the beautiful mother of two amazing children. Red Ted and Pipsqueak are her cute little names for her kiddos that she uses on the internet. But these beautiful children have inspired her love of crafting, and truly even Red Ted has created an entire brand called Red Ted Art, and she has millions of followers across the internet and is a beautiful website, redtedart.com. So Maggy, welcome to our podcast.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here. Really fun and a great topic to discuss, actually. Not an easy one, but a great one.
But one that should have a discussion. Absolutely. Yeah. We had a great experience chatting back and forth in our DMs, getting to know each other over the past couple weeks here. And you actually introduced me to one of our other amazing guests that you'll be hearing from, which is Becky. And she just is so phenomenal to help out with the children's emotional well-being. So we'll be hearing about that episode a little bit later, but let's talk today about your story. You created this beautiful website, Red Ted Art, but where did this all come from? Where was the very beginning?
Well, it's now, so my son's almost 13, so I think it's almost 11 years ago now, which is quite scary because it doesn't feel like 11 years. So to be honest, I know it's a bit of a cliche, but I was that mom at home with a toddler and a baby, and I was kind of looking for something not to do, but there was always at the back of my mind that it had to be a business, if I'm being quite honest. But so it wasn't just a pure passion of crafting. I wanted to find something that I could do, but it could also contribute to the household, because I knew at that point that I didn't want to go back to traditional employment. So it would have to be something else. And crafts, art, well, that was something that I always enjoyed. You know, as a child, I was a keen crafter. I have very many happy memories of, crafting with my granny and my nanny and my friends and in the classroom, and lots of memories that I were really precious to me, or still precious to me. And I knew that also that for my kids, I wanted to recreate some of that love for creating, if that makes sense. So all of those kind of collided at the same time. And via a few corners, Red Ted Art, what it is now, was sort of creative. So, I mean, it was sort of, a lot of experimenting at the beginning, seeing what works in terms of what we enjoy and what we find easy, what we're good at. I used to do a lot of picture book reviews for kids as well, because, we love books, but obviously that's not quite Red Ted Art. That's literally, it's books and reading. But a lot of the early crafts therefore had books and a craft combined, which is a really nice way to work with preschoolers, actually, is having that story and then creating something off the back of that story, which was always quite fun. But it very quickly turned into, actually, we want to craft. We still read, but not always the two combined. And that was 11 years ago. So it's just gone from strength to strength. Obviously, it's changed over time as my kids have grown up. So now you'll see a lot of content for older kids as well. I mean, mine are 11 and 13 now. But there's obviously lots of preschools too. I mean, just from historically, I've got loads of the things we did together. Lots of guest posts. I have guest writers. And there's still lots of fun stuff to make with preschoolers. So sometimes I sneak one in, even though I don't have a preschool. Can't resist, right? It's been a good story. It's been a great journey, and it's it's a wonderful way to work, to be able to work with something that you enjoy and that you love and that you're passionate about. And about 5 years ago, I started a YouTube channel as well. And that taught me a lot just from reading the viewers' feedback, the comments at the bottom. It gave me a real insight into what children are able to do, what they're not able to do, what materials they have at home, what materials they don't have at home. And it kind of made me feel a little bit like I was their crafty auntie.
Yeah.
So I became a mission to encourage the next age group to, even if they haven't had it in their, at home, because, lots of circumstances or whatever, that they have somebody else that they can turn to and still be creative and be inspired. Well, I tried to anyway. But,
Oh, you don't try, you do. I know that you have millions of followers that absolutely love everything you put out. And I love where this passion came from. To be able to stay home with your kiddos, which is a huge passion for me as well, but still bring in money. And so you're able to do that with your business. But blending the business and your hobby, do you struggle to pull the two apart? Because that's the thing I struggle with is my business, everything about it. I love all of it. And so
Yes.
do you ever struggle to pull those two apart?
Well, I've had my not ups and downs, because I wouldn't say there's been any big downs, but I've definitely had times where, everything blurred. And, am I working now, or am I doing something fun? I'd say that was maybe 5 years ago, sort of halfway through my journey. And I was so into everything I was doing that I didn't mind if I put in extra hours.
Right.
But I would say more recently, maybe also because my husband's now stay-at-home dad, which is great because the blog allows him to. I then noticed that things shifted a bit too much towards work. And I think recently, again, I've sort of moved back a bit again. So it'd almost be at the point where, I don't want to craft at the weekend. I do that all week. And that's a shame,
right.
right? Because the kids do want to craft. So I've as I've had the 11 years of content and ideas and all that kind of stuff, I'm now in a point where I can actually cruise a little bit, and I'm actually actively trying to work less. So it's really interesting because at one point it all blurred and it merged and it didn't feel like work, and it still doesn't feel like work now, but it's changed a little bit, yes. But it's you do have to sometimes, I think, step back and just say, okay, am I doing this for fun or am I doing it for work? And
right.
I do try now say, actually, no, now I'm having the afternoon off. And interestingly, by doing that more, I've probably got more time to be naturally creative again, if that makes sense. So my kids' night at the moment, as many parts of the world, we're in lockdown. So we're working together on a crochet granny square blanket. So it's actually quite nice to just sit in the afternoon, all together, sitting there, making a little having a little chat. Whereas I think if I was really focused on just work, I'd probably go, I don't know, I've got time. Granny Square takes half an hour, or that sort of thing. So it's quite nice to pull back a little bit. And now we're working on that project together, and hopefully it'll be a nice keepsake of something that we did together. During winter in the dark.
Absolutely. And I love too how pulling back a little bit allows you to, like you said, bring back that natural creativity.
Yeah.
So this is a great segue into our conversation for today. Process versus product. And there's no one I'd rather have the conversation with than you, because you have this beautiful crafting love and sight. And could we go back just a little bit? Because I've heard all the conversations, having had my preschool for 10 years. And, being in the ECE world, you hear it's all about the process, not the product. And we kind of, have that ground into us from the get-go.
Yeah.
But I was schooled by one of my own amazing preschool teachers, shout out Malia, that, there is a place for product because it can teach so many steps, so many directions, so many different, teacher directed type of things. So could you share with us maybe your experience of is there a balance? Is it, no, we're okay? Like, just go back with your thoughts first on that.
So firstly, I think there's definitely a place for both. That's sort of my coming in at it point of view. So the simplest way of separating the two out is that the product orientated activity, to me, is about providing skill to a child. So this is where the preschool bit comes into a bit as well. At which point do you just let children have the freedom, and at which point you start teaching them something? And I guess that's why it's such a big topic for particularly preschool age children, because some people would say, no, you can wait till they're 8, till they're 9, till they're 10. Whereas others might say, actually, no, start really early. So I'm not quite sure when exactly the right time is. But I do think the whole product orientated side of things is very much about, so skills, so sewing, knitting, crocheting, I just mentioned, but also, understanding that this glue works better with paper, and this glue works better with, if you're trying to glue, I don't know, felt to a stick or something, whatever it is you're creating. It's also about understanding if you mix these colors, this is the result. I mean, that can come through process as well, obviously, but quite often with process, you then end up with brown, and I'm not always convinced the child or brown. I'm not always convinced that the child has actually learned that what had happened in that mixing process. I mean, obviously they need the exploration and the freedom to explore. So the way I always see it is you present the product activity with the steps, but you allow the children to be creative within that. So, you give them the freedom to say, well, I want mine to have 5 legs versus 2 legs. Or I want my cat to be purple versus brown. So I think that's where it's really important, or also really important that, and this is a risk a lot of parents fall into, is that you don't correct their work. I mean, you have to, if the stitches aren't, if something's not connecting properly, you have to help them out a little bit, but you try and not change their work as much as you can. You have to. So I think that's where, if you're purely product or if you're purely process, you sometimes think the product people are saying, no, you must do everything exactly as I tell you. But the product people aren't saying that. Well, I'm not. I'm just saying, this is how I do it. This is how it works for me. And if you follow these steps, you will learn things that will help you then create something else. So on my channel, for example, again, it's not preschool, but preschoolers can start these. I have some corner bookmarks. And again, you have to follow a process. But I always say, look, once you've made this, now you can create your own. I've showed you how to make the cat. You go out there and you make a dog out of it. Or more preschool, actually, rather than the bookmarks, is a nice dog hand puppet. Super simple process. Product steps to create the dog hand puppet. But once you've learned how to make this dog, what other animals can you make, or what other monsters or fantasy animals? And that's where you can let the imagination run wild. And I think sometimes that's where somebody who's really intensely focused on the process forgets that actually, I'm not trying to, the product just gives you a tool set to explore or to have a go at something that you wouldn't otherwise. I mean, another example would be, I've got them here actually. My daughter made these when she was little dolls.
Oh, cute.
Yeah, so she, as you can tell, she drew this, and then I think she would have done some sewing with it. I'm trying to remember how we did it. She might have done a straight line on the sewing machine, and obviously I would have done the top. But, I would have done a cutout quite a lot for her. But, you could argue something like this. If you say to a preschooler, here's some fabric and here's some pens, do what you want, they're not going to make this, right? So, and I'm not, they don't have to make a doll. My son made a Robin version. He didn't need a choice. He could have done an animal if he wanted to. So I think it's about saying, this is how we're doing it. But giving the children space within that to do their own fun or imagination, and really trying not to interfere. I mean, that is obviously key as well. And when you're doing a product-led activity, it's tempting to interfere because you say, no, I'm teaching them. But it's knowing where the boundaries between teaching and interfering. And I think that's what people find quite hard. But I'm quite passionate that product has a place, fine motor skills. Origami, preschoolers can do origami, and people would say, oh, it's so structured, why would you do origami? But actually it's all about maths, it's about fine motor skills, it's about hand-eye coordination. So you're trying to achieve something different to purely process art or process activities, which is all about the sensory and the it's a very different, it's probably far more creative, the process side, but the product-led is the, that fine motor skills, following not rules, but following instructions, listening, hand-eye coordination, all those things. And they've got great value in preschool, I think.
Well, and I think any educator and mother knows there is time for play, and there's also the time we need to follow directions.
Yeah.
We are raising these children to be competent human beings, and we can't have a completely unruly or completely open, no boundaries world as they enter adulthood. And so, like you said, we don't know what age and such like that, but there should not be this, oh no, I'm over here on the process side and we talk about the product side, or, and vice versa. There is a place for both, and there's a time and a place for everything. And just as, play has a place in the classroom, so does teaching following directions.
Yeah. And I think also, especially when it comes to arts and crafts, it's important also to understand that the children are all different. And some children love to follow directions. because they're quite nervous. And it means others would argue, oh, they're nervous of the creativity because they weren't allowed to be creative. But actually, with some children, I think it's just who they are. So they enjoy following steps to achieve something, and others who are much more right brain or left, it all depends on where your personality is, will enjoy the creative freedom. So I think we've also got to remember that children aren't all the same. They're all different, and they will have different strengths and different weaknesses. And some of them will enjoy being told how to do it. Yes, you could argue it's less creative, but the child still gets a lot of joy out of it because they've created something. And especially with my YouTube channel, the goal was always about making my craft, or I call them accessible crafts. So there's lots of gorgeous stuff on the internet, which is really hard to make. And I want kids to see my stuff and go, I want to make that. And then they make it. And there's a similarity. I obviously don't want it to look the same, because I want their things to have personality. But also, I want them to have a feeling of success. Right? I had a go at this and it worked. And I hear so many children who say, oh, I'm no good at art. Oh, I'm rubbish. And I'm like, no one's rubbish. If you've been given the tools, the experience, the steps, the right project, I think all the kids can make really great stuff. And I think people forget that. And I think sometimes the purist thinks that they say there's space for play, there's space for process. It's so important, and you definitely can't not have that. But also there's place for all those other things. And then recognizing that the children are different and do have different skills and different interests,
And we would be remiss to not work on the skills that the children struggle with. I mean, yes, they might have a certain skill in an area. Let's work on the skills that they struggle with as well.
Yeah. I mean, crafting it's all about cutting and accuracy and gluing and drawing lines and straight lines and round lines and circles and triangles. I mean, there's so much secret maths in there, right?
Yes.
It's just brilliant. And things connecting together, a little bit of mechanics going on. And there's so much stuff that brings together. But also from a sort of preschool perspective, and looking at my children, we got to the point where my children thought I could make anything. So we'd been in a toy shop and they go, oh, mommy, I want that. And I'd be like, oh my God, we'll make that. And then yay, we'll make that, mommy, we'll make it. And obviously we'd make it, and it, in inverted commas, rubbish, but in inverted commas, they loved it. They were so happy, right? They were like, yeah, we made it. We didn't have to spend money in the toy shop for a silly plastic toy. You made me a much better pirate ship or whatever it is. So it's that thing of, without following some sort of steps and having some sort of order. So yes, there were some projects where I, as the adult, would take control. Like we did make a pirate ship, which my son still has. I should have gone and found it actually. But they painted it. They chose the colors. They chose what design to put on the side. So, just because something isn't always within the skill set, you can still work on it together. And then you can basically stretch their skill sets, because it could be that next time they are ready for doing that slightly harder bit, whether it's putting the masking tape on properly or cutting a difficult shape out. But if you don't give them an opportunity to stretch into that next skill, they won't know. So if you're a parent, I mean, I know you have a lot of teachers as well, but a lot of our crafts where I saw as together projects, which there's still a lot of joy for the children, even if they haven't made all of it on their own, if that makes sense. There's still that joy in creating together and the opportunity to stretch your skills whilst creating together.
Well, and I think sometimes why does it come down to the art is like, well, because it's art, then we're going to have the debate between process and product. But the point is, back out of art for a second, there's product in a ton of stuff in the preschool classroom. When we count, there's a sequence that we count.
Yeah.
When we have our letters, there is an order to the letters, and there is a sound corresponding with each one. It is not, which sound do you feel like it says today? There is a product. There is there is rhyme and reason behind the things that we do as well. So we have to kind of back out and say, it's not just about art here, friends. This is all development.
Yeah. So that's maybe where you maybe hit it on the head there. It's that thing of people forget that crafty or products. People think they're art, but actually, are they? Actually, no, they're not. They're actually, they're actually a learning opportunity. I mean, they are usually done as a fun activity at the end of a topic to fill some time at Christmas or whatever. And they are fun. this is the thing, crafts, generally speaking, most kids enjoy them. But I
Yes.
think because of that, people think it's art, when I don't think it is. And maybe that's where we're going wrong. We should see it as like a different set of curriculum objectives, of giving that child a skill. And then, yes, there's the art, but that sort of, they kind of, or maybe it's two fields merging together, right? Maybe
Well, you think about anything.
art colliding,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
A lot
You
of
think
art has that, right?
right. I mean, if you've got your sensory, okay, but let's put in our shaving cream and food coloring, and now we've got science, right?
Yeah,
So it's all a blend. And I feel like for anybody to stand on one, area and say, well, mine is better than yours or such, there's a place for everything. This has been such an amazing discussion. I love to talk shop.
I do think the key is not to interfere, though. I think that's where people then, where people then very quickly towards process again. So as long as people remember to not change the children's work, and I do think that's quite important. Sorry to interrupt, but I just had to say that again because it's really
that
important.
Is so perfect. Yes, not change the children's work. I love that. Perfect. So, is there anything else you'd like to share before we wrap up and tell everyone where they can find you?
No, I think that was a passionate topic, and you let me talk about it loads. So thank you.
You're welcome.
About it for ages. Sorry if I repeat myself, but I just think it's really important.
It is important for everybody to understand that both have a place in the classroom, 100%.
And just seeing, I know I've only got 2 children and it's a very small sample, but seeing my kids and how they've developed over the years, how they take things that they had a go at with me a couple of years ago and then come along and they're making something like, where did you do that? And then I go, oh, hang on a minute, we did something similar like that. And it's stuck in their brain and now it's come out in something that they've created totally independently. So, 2 years, 3 years later, it's still resurfacing, right? And that's lovely to see.
Absolutely. Oh, this is amazing. We could talk for hours. Yes. Well, where can our listeners go? Because I know they're dying to go follow you right now. Where should everybody go to go follow you?
It's all my handles on Facebook and Instagram and the website is all Red Ted Art. So like the Red Teddy. And it's art and not crafts, but Red Ted Art sounded better. So it's redtedart.com, and all my social handles are Red Ted Art on YouTube, Instagram, all that. Yeah. So hopefully.
I love that. Yes, everybody needs to go follow redtedart.com. You'll find all of her handles there as well on the website. But not to mention, I forgot to say, she's the beautiful writer of these 2 gorgeous books back here. So we have Easy Paper Projects and Red Ted Art that you can find on Amazon or on her website. Be sure to go grab your copy. My kids are loving them. I have older ones, but I know the preschoolers would also love them. So thank you again for being on our podcast.
Thank you for having me.
If you love today's episode, then you are going to love this. I want to give you a free gift in your hands. This is a copy of my book, Start Your Preschool, and I want to get it to you for free. Yes, I said for free. It is a 300-page book. It'll help you learn the step-by-step process to actually starting your local or your online preschool. Every single step that I walked myself through, as well as the thousands of women who've created their own successful preschools, have gone through the exact steps listed in this book. Not to mention, I also share 20 amazing women's stories. So you can see how not only did it work for me, but it works for amazing women just like you as well. I want to get you this free copy. Just go to freepreschoolbook.com or click the link in the description and we'll get it to you today. Again, just go to freepreschoolbook.com and we'll get it right to you.